So this war, I was pretty lucky that I was able to catch a lot of my matches actually and had enough space to film them. So you guys are actually going to be getting quite a few videos of war. I already put out one last night. I am doing this one and I might put out one more depending on how things go. But as you see, I'm still using this general attack team that is pretty powerful, especially with the 20% tower for strong characters. What I really like about this team is that it eats up almost any yellow lead. And with Elle being a tune that a lot of players still use on defense because of her bite ability, I find that having this trade advantage is a huge advantage for me, especially if they have a combination where, I can't defense down the enemy. Then I really need to focus on using that trade advantage, critical hits, and other ways to leverage my team. And whenever I go into a match, you don't see me oftentimes check weapons as much. I might check for the occasional absolute defense weapon, but for a lot of these teams and tunes, you already have a general idea of what they have. Like when I see a Camilla lead, I'm thinking they could have an 8% or they have an absolute defense. And obviously, it's pretty easy to see if it's an 8% weapon as the whole team will gain AP. When I go into a match, I kind of have a general idea on what will be on the defense team just because of the lead that someone is using. And if you want to be more in depth, you can also check out the prestige of a player as well as their team grade. Obviously, if someone has a higher team grade and higher prestige, you can anticipate them having more S-class tunes or tunes with a lot of veteran rings on them. Just by using these little things, you can help decide like what type of team you want to run against them and if there's any weapon changes or tune changes that you'll need to make before going up against whatever team you're trying to fight. So when I'm taking a look and I see like a Carl lead like this case, I'm expecting a lot of melee tunes. Based on the team grade, I can assume there's probably going to be a James, and then there might be, some other revivers and a human shield, because many people now do have a human shield. It's been quite some time, and now with Lee and Magna in the survival marker depot area, everyone now has the chance to acquire a human shield. Now, my personal opinion on both Magna and Lee, I would not get them and use them as a shield just because of the gear requirements. Like, honestly, I don't know why they decided to use Lee and Magna as the new tunes that need your sleeping bags and your pocket knife and stuff, because it doesn't really make sense to me. Because we already have Dr. Stevens in there, and we have Zeke, and there's a Jesus, I believe, that's a 5-star. So I'm not sure why they decided to make two completely different tunes that have never been in that depot to be not just new 6-stars, but 6-stars that need that specific gear. In my opinion, both of these human shields came out way too late, considering the state of a game that we're in, where there's now S-class tunes. I'm not sure if this is possible, but it wouldn't surprise me if Krista could one-shot Shield Lee, especially in this war where the general gives a plus 20% attack boost to the defending team. I would not be shocked if Krista was one-shotting people's Lee that people were using on attack to protect the rest of their team. Or if people were using Lee on defense, I still think Krista could one-shot Lee. Just as I would not be surprised if Priya could one-shot Red Magna, the shield. In my opinion, both of these shields needed to come out months ago. Like, we're talking 3 or 4 months ago, when people were still running a lot of human shields, because now we are in the S-class era where all these tunes are so strong that they are just eating almost every single 6-star out there. Like in some of my attack videos, I'm sure you'll notice where Krista in some cases ends up just killing either my Lily, my Glenn, my Sean, or even my James at some point. And it's not because they're super weak, it's just because she's super strong. And there's no balance anymore to the game and no real place for 6-stars, especially Generation 1 6-stars. I mentioned this in my other video. One of the reasons why I haven't given any veteran rings to my 6-star Command Glenn, even though I use him on defense sometimes and I use him on attack is because the best I can do with 30 veteran levels on him is him being on par with a Generation 2 6-star, but then he's eons behind these S-class tunes. There are many times when I wish my roster was more extensive because then I would have more options both on attack and on defense. The best I could do for defense this war was trying to create a tanky defense so that I might be able to buy myself just 30 extra seconds even. So I did find that 6v6 cross-regional war favored me just because, it's usually 5 attacks to kill a person. So that requires 5 out of 6 people instead of 5 out of 8 to successfully attack and kill me. So it just gave me more time in order to score more points and help out my faction for the weekend. With the addition of Kapoor this weekend, I saw him on a ton of defense teams, and I totally understand why. As an S-class toon, he has higher stats than all your Generation 1 and Generation 2 6-stars. He has dexterity, so like Roxy, he's a very tanky toon and can slow people down. So I unfortunately was not able to work him into my defense team just because I don't have the proper supporting characters to make a very solid defense, in my opinion. Like, the best type of lead I could do is Season Store Zeke, Green Generation 1 Garrett, and I don't even know who else I could use as a defensive lead that would support Kapoor and possibly James. Like, ideally, I would want both just because of that plus 20% attack bonus when I'm not the general, although I was the general quite a bit this weekend. I think it would be very effective to have used James on defense just because he has the potential to kill the enemy, and with his raised defense and HP from just being an S-class toon, he has a decent chance to survive as long as I don't have Krista and a bunch of other red toons dogpiling on him. But I ended up going with a defense that was a typical Eric lead, Roxy, Joshua, Elodie, and Denise, actually. And I just tried to tank them out quite a bit. So your typical HP and defense sets, Grays, defense versus a trait, and then I had some maim resist mods and some bleed resist mods scattered throughout my team just because with maim and bleed being the past and current meta and how they can take away from a toon's HP while ignoring defense, I found it was very important to have these aspects to my team in order to help with survivability. My defense did end up being a windowless defense, meaning that there was no safe target, so if you didn't have a disarm toon, there was a chance of you being stunned, AP drained, or impaired, I believe. So it was just a good mix for me in that case, because if someone wasn't able to disarm on the first turn, then they ran the risk of having some negative status effect implemented onto them, which could still buy me some time if they decided to, say, defend on the first turn, or if they ended up losing a toon to one of these debilitating statuses and needing an extra turn to recover from it. And then, of course, with this defensive team, Elodie and Joshua both have hold the line, so as other toons die around them, they gain plus 25% attack and defense for every dead toon. And when we look at Denise, she has a very tanky build. I gave her a weapon with plus 35% HP and plus 35% defense instead of going for any AP gain. I did something similar with Elodie. And then for Joshua and Eric, they both had impair weapons. I believe Elodie naturally has a stun weapon, Denise her AP down weapon, and then Roxy, I just gave her a very tanky weapon with HP and defense and impair on it, so that it was just much harder to kill her, especially because she has dexterity on her as well. So the more AP that she has, the less damage that she takes. Add in a Grays mod and other HP and defense mods, and she just becomes a very difficult toon to take out in 1 or 2 hits. Now, even though I ran this team for the majority of war, I know that outside of war, I'm definitely going to have to practice and use some other toons in different teams and try to experiment in order to find more efficient methods of taking out the enemy. And I really do need to work on my defense because if I get destroyed within the first minute or less, then I'm not really going to be able to help my team as much or score as many points, as I've rejoined Twilight Princess, and we play at a little bit of a higher level than the faction that I am currently in for this war. With the release of Kapoor, I'm really thinking about focusing on getting S Pete, just because having that S-class tune on defense, I wouldn't have to run main resist mods anymore, which would open me up to running, say, bleed resist or burn resist, stun resist, or even the new mods that are coming out, or that have come out, sorry, so like disarm resist on a human shield, for instance. I feel like I will have a lot more options once I do have S-Class Pete, because right now there's really no defense that I can run Kapoor on effectively. So thinking ideally, if I get S Pete, I would probably run Kapoor with him, I would run my Dale with him, I might run my one Cole in order to cause that taunt on the first turn, and then finally probably Ajax if I can get stun on him. Because if I can get stun on Ajax's weapon, a huge bonus to AP when taking damage, and then I think it's defense that he has on his weapon already, so just raise his defense, I could get a good taunt loop going on. The only thing I would have to really worry about is players using attack up when taunted, because I would need Ajax to be fairly sturdy, probably have a stun resist as well as a bleed resist, so that someone just didn't bleed out my shield on the first or second turn. The team should be fairly effective. Kapoor can do an okay amount of damage. He can maim a line. His healing active skill and then his rush also gives defense. It was a bother for me on this weekend, so I'm going to guess it'll be a bother for other people. And then his dexterity obviously will also help because it makes him quite the tanky tune. I'm thinking with Ajax, I would have to run maybe him in a line with it and maybe do a huge bonus to AP when being attacked. That way, if there's line damage, then I'm able to kind of absorb that. I won't take as much damage from dexterity, and then there will be more of an AP gain as well. So Dale is there to help with command rushes, and S Pete can recover from maim, can heal, guardian, revive. I just feel like there would be a lot of good options. And then Cole has his taunt as well as his disarm on his weapon and can attack down the enemy. Thank you for watching and listening to my video. I'm hoping to get another video up tomorrow of some more war matches for you.